Our speakers today are Kevin Bjorn, who is the technical director at IRIS, which means he's pretty much in charge of all technical doings at IRIS. We're also just joined by Jason Owen Smith, who is the executive director of IRIS. Our other speaker will be Rob Ganaway. He is the co-founder and CFO of Stepping Blocks, which is based in Atlanta. And he founded the company 5 years ago. So I'm going to throw it to Kevin now, and Rob will speak briefly in the middle of Kevin's talk, and then I'll join at the end for the Q&A and a quick note about publicity. So Kevin, take it away.
All right, thanks, Dan. So hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Today's presentation, I'm going to go over a few things before we jump into the actual reports that we're going to showcase. First, I'm going to walk through a brief discussion of what is IRIS for those participants who aren't familiar with our organization. Then I'm going to hand off to Rob Ganaway so he can talk a little bit about the underlying data that is supporting this report. And then I'll take over again and we'll talk more about how the data was linked together with IRIS data, and then ultimately look at the reports and talk about use cases and things like that. So let me advance here and get started. So IRIS, the Institute for Research on Innovation and Science, is an IRB approved data repository located at the University of Michigan. And we are situated within the Institute for Social Research. And we have utilized that infrastructure to create a mechanism by which universities join IRIS, become members of the organization, and submit data and resources to further the mission of IRIS, which is to help all of our members and really all universities across the country explain the value of scientific research that's being conducted on all of our campuses. To date, we have 35 university members. We account for roughly 40% of all federal R&D spending and 30% of all doctorates granted. And we have right now just over 240 researchers from across the country that utilize this data to try to answer important and interesting questions related to the impact and effects of scientific research on our campuses. One of the things that IRIS does is we take administrative data from our member universities, and administrative data is data that's generated in the day-to-day running of the university. So procurement data, sponsored projects data, human resources data, things like that. We take it, we clean it, we normalize it, and we combine it together to build a comprehensive data set that can then be combined with other data sources from the US Census Bureau, from one of our other data partners, Bureau Van Dyke, which provides business data to us, our newest data partner, Stepping Blocks, which provides outcomes data, as well as public federal sources such as NSF, NIH, and other private sector vendors as well. Over on the right-hand side here, we have a little graphic that displays briefly how this works. Member institutions share data with us, which is then combined and at another time de-identified. The de-identified data sets are shared with researchers through our virtual data enclave, which is a secure data enclave that we use to allow researchers to combine their data sets with ours, produce publishable material, and then use that to, again, answer interesting stories or questions that they may have to answer. We combine our data with data from partners and use that data then to produce reports that we feed back to our member institutions, as well as aggregate versions of reports that we provide to advocacy organizations such as AAU, and then also publications, op-eds, things like that. So just a really brief discussion of how this works. We have this little graphic here that we've built that sort of explains the process. The National Science Foundation, in this example, NSF, provides an award to one of our member institutions. That award is used to hire people to do the actual work of research. Money from that award is used to purchase goods and services from vendors. These vendors are spread across the country. So we use this data to talk about some economic impact indicators of research spending. Some of that money may go as subawards to other universities or organizations, and we're able to track all of that information through our membership and then use that to report on the economic, the scientific, and the human aspects of the impact of all the scientific research that's going on. Some of the things that we produce, here's a few quick little examples. We produce a variety of metrics in a variety of different reports that focus on the impact to people. These would be the individuals who are paid to do research. These would be faculty members or PIs. These would be staff members like myself. These would be students, postdoctoral trainees. We provide metrics on the impact of that. We also provide metrics on vendor purchases, on geographic or industry level impacts. We look at funding sequences for more specialized reports. We talk about team metrics. There's a whole wide range of information that we put together for our members and then present in as meaningful a way as possible. So with that, let me hand off to Rob Ganaway here, and I want him to discuss a little bit of their data that they provide and the way that we're going to utilize it here. We entered into a partnership with Stepping Blocks about 6 months ago, 8 months ago, something like that. And so I'm really excited to share this new report with you, and it's based primarily on their data. So take it away, Rob.
All right, thanks, Kevin. Yeah, a little background on the company and our technology and how it relates to Iris is I'll go through each different segment, but Stepping Blocks is an education and workforce data analytics provider. We're based in Atlanta, Georgia. We really started the company, and our mission remains to help students and administrators make better decisions using data. So instead of, if you can't measure your outcomes, then you can't improve yourself. And if a lot of this data does exist out in the public domain, we're trying to harness that data so that they can make better decisions. We are partially funded by 2 National Science Foundation grants. Initially, one was to address the skills gap in higher education, how it relates to private employers. And the second one is really to use our underlying technology to develop a recruiting application to help discover underrepresented talent across the nation. So really our core technology allows us to process unstructured public data. So turning that public data into insights and helping drive better decision making. But really we obtain this data from hundreds of different sources. It includes government data, public filings, social media data, code repositories, resumes, private websites. So it really just depends where you want to look, but anywhere that people post information about themselves, their companies, or their education institutions publicly, we're grabbing that data and making sense of it. As I just mentioned, there are other companies that have partners to get a lot of this raw data, but it's really not effective unless you have the back end to really process the data and make sense of it. So, if we have billions and billions of data points, really the difficult part here is using the machine learning to deduplicate profiles, merge them together, update them, normalize and classify titles, estimate additional metrics using machine learning models. So that's really the difficult part, is making sense of the data and putting it in a form that can be analyzed through custom software. After we process all the data, go through all the quality checks in stage 1 and stage 2, we end up with these fully longitudinal profiles. So these profiles are ordered and contain every milestone along a person's journey. So that includes education milestones, work milestones, additional metrics about the person, such as gender, location for each function, their tenure in the position, the time to promotion, skills, interests, all the way down to contact information if they've listed it publicly. So these profiles we have for about 80% of the US workforce. There's 130 million plus profiles in our database right now, over 25 million companies and over 7,000 education institutions. And these final profiles can then be sliced and diced depending on the use case of whether it's online, interactive, web-based dashboards, or more custom use cases like for Iris here today. For most of our higher ed partners, there's really two segments. There's administrative data, so like custom dashboards or standardized dashboards that we sell to higher ed institutions. And it's really just driving better decision making, as I mentioned, but it's truly a campus-wide solution. So we'll have, for some universities, we have up to 150 users across campus, and that varies from career centers to institutional research, leadership at the university, advancement, alumni relations, all the way down to deans for curriculum modifications. So it truly is a campus-wide solution. We also sell a student platform. It's kind of the trademark is the digital career counselor, where we take our entire database anonymously and let students make better decisions. So what are the top outcomes for my university? What are the top outcomes for degrees in my geography? What is my dream job, that job title in that company? And we can actually look at everyone who's ever been in that position and how they got there. So intermediate jobs, education, and the skills that that specific company uses. So it's really just a roadmap to the path of least resistance to your dream career. So I'm sure you guys have questions. Feel free to post those in Q&A, and I'll answer them as best I can.
We do have a couple of questions, Kevin and Rob. One question is the data related at the individual level? And another question is, do you have data profiles for individuals not in the United States to track those who leave this country?
Gotcha. Yeah. So the first question is, yes, it's down to the individual level. So it's kind of a bottom-up approach. We take all the data to create these individual profiles, and then from there we'll aggregate at a university level, a company level, a geography level, whatever we need to aggregate into. So absolutely down to the individual level. And the second question, Nancy, can you give me that one again?
Sure.
International representation.
Yeah,
okay.
International.
So we are focused on primarily the United States. We also have Canadian profiles. We have the ability to go get additional international profiles. There are different regulations in different countries, and so it's cross-border stipulations. So we don't have enough need yet to really go out and go around the world, but we do have the methodology to do it if we need to. But right now, just focus on the United States.
And at this time, Iris also focuses on domestic impact.
This is Jason Owen Smith. I just saw a question in chat about how this differs from census data, which we also work with. The two are very highly complementary. So census data, particularly from the longitudinal employer household dynamics data set, is based on IRS data, W-2 data, and state unemployment insurance data, but comes with federal restrictions on use that mean we can't slice and dice the data in as many fashions as universities and researchers might want to. These data come from, as Rob has just said, a wide range of public records. They align in the tests we've done pretty nicely, but they are different snapshots of what we hope is the same process.
And Kevin, there's another question. Are the stepping blocks data also linked to U-metrics at the individual level?
Yes, they are. So we take the data, we link them at the individual level. What you'll see in the report next will be aggregated up a little bit to preserve privacy. But in our data set, we do maintain it at the individual level. And one thing I will add is that researchers, member universities and stuff can access that data through our virtual data enclave. We have a process in place to do that. So, so you can always dig down if you want, but at least in these reports that we're going to demonstrate, we've aggregated it up to preserve individuals' privacy. Okay, if that's all the questions, I'll continue on. So, given all the data that IRIS has and the data that Stepping Blocks provides, we've linked the two together. And I've represented here the data from the IRIS side that we're going to demonstrate inside this report, and the data from the Stepping Blocks side that we felt was relevant to this initial release of the report. So on the IRIS side, we'll be using something called the Eps category, and this is an employment category. We take the individual records from universities, the individual person level records, and we categorize them as employees, as staff members, as faculty, as postdoctoral trainees, et cetera, to produce these job or employment categories. We also look at the award funding history to determine when did these people work at the university, when were they trained in research, when were they funded by research awards. And then we look at the funding time frame. So how long were they with the university? In what areas did they do research? That kinds of stuff. Then we link that to the Stepping Blocks data, and we find out for the people who have left the university, where did they go? Whom are they working for? What industries are those employers in? And how much are those people earning? And then another data point that we have that we're not including in this report, but we're gonna try to figure out a way to include it in the next iteration, are educational milestones. So who among these people went on to get master's degrees, PhDs, things like that, and at what institutions did they do that? So with that, I'm gonna jump into the report here. So let me stop this slideshow here and jump into one of the reports. So this is the report, and all IRIS members have access to this report. Each university has a university-specific report. So the University of Michigan has their own report, Northwestern has their own report. The one I'll be showing here today is an aggregate report that takes the data from all of our member universities, combines it together to try to tell a more comprehensive story of research, of outcomes for research funded employees. So one of the first things that we look at are, where do people go when they leave the university? Where do they go when they take that research training, their education and their knowledge? Where are they bringing that to other places in the country? And so we start at this high level national map that shows you which states benefit the most from the migration of these research funded individuals. And then if you want to drill down, you can drill down into individual states. So let's say New York here, we can drill down into the state of New York, and we can see which counties benefit from this data. And we have data down to the zip code level. But again, we aggregate up to the county level to preserve privacy. So you can see, you know, Albany County, 235 individuals have gone here. And we can look at the city of New York, 15,000 and change have gone here. So the first metrics that we look at are the geographic destinations of these research trained employees. Up here at the top, we also maintain some simple bullet points, some quick references, the top industries that individuals are going into, and how many people actually make up this particular report. Over on the left-hand side, we have various filters, and they come into play as we move down into the next sections here. When we look at the industries that these individuals go into when they leave the university, you can see we have education, other healthcare, information technology, life sciences. And right now we're looking at 3 categories: undergrads, grad students, and postdocs. We can also look at staff, we can look at faculty, or other students. Other students are employees that we know are students, but we don't have enough information to classify them as either an undergrad or a grad student. So we've dropped them into this category just to capture their studentness. So you can adjust these categories, add them, subtract them. All of these charts can be exported very easily to be used in presentations. And then we can adjust the types of industries that are displayed in the chart. And so we provide information here with counts. So you know which industries are the top. So of all the industries, most of the people, well, I shouldn't say most, but the largest number of people go into the education. So they go on to work for other universities or other higher education locations across the country. The other category are companies that we have not been able to classify into a given industry yet. That category keeps getting smaller and smaller as we refine our machine learning algorithms to do that. And then the rest of them here, healthcare, information tech, life sciences, so on and so forth. There's a wide range of them here. And as you click on the ones that you're interested in, it starts to populate all the charts starting here and then moving down. So the first things, we try to group everything by industry. We felt that that was the most relevant way to group things to start with. So here I've selected 5 industries: education, healthcare, information tech. You can see how many people have gone into those industries. And then when I move down a little bit more, you can start looking at the earnings of these people. So now we know where people are going. We know what industries they're working for. Now we can find out how much people are earning when they go into those industries. And so we can see the outliers, the maxes and stuff, but the medians I think are the most important data point here. How much people are earning. So undergrads that go into the education sector are earning a median of 48,000 and change as their salary. We can look at information technology. We can see the median is 82,000 and change, and so on and so forth. And we can look at that for different types. So faculty members who worked at a university and then left, how much are they earning in education and other places? 82,000 plus or minus. We can look at the postdocs. We can look at any combination of employee class and industry that seems interesting or relevant to you. Once you look at that information, you can also find out which companies people are working for. So we can see here, if we selected undergrads in education, a large segment of them are working at the University of Michigan Medical School. I think that is a data anomaly right there, because Michigan data consists, a lot of our data is Michigan data. So that pushes them towards the top. But you can see other ones here: Harvard, Michigan State, Maryland, so on and so forth. If we look at the tech industry, if we look at undergrads in tech, we've got Amazon, Microsoft, Google, so on and so forth. And you can see what their median earnings are and how many people have ended up in those companies. Now, every individual university that's a member of IRIS gets their own report that focuses on their former staff, alumni that have left their university and goes into different employment opportunities. Now, I want to point out this last one right here, Zipper. Notice there's no bar there. The reason is because there's not enough people, so there's less than 10 that have ended up here. And so we'll tell you the name of the company, but we're not going to tell you how many people or what the median salary is, because it could just be one person, it could be 9 people. Again, this is an effort to preserve privacy. You will notice on individual university reports that a lot of companies may be masked. That's an artifact of the low numbers of individuals that we have in the data compared to this very large aggregate report where we started with 172,000 employees across all IRIS members. There is a mechanism that we have in place if you want to talk to IRIS to reduce the privacy threshold, so some of those companies and information becomes more visible to you. So you can reach out to us and talk to us about that if you're interested in it.
Kevin, we have a
Yes.
question.
Sure.
So the person asks, are you able to follow this same individual over time? So in the aggregate data, are the results for the first position after they leave, or if the same individual is observed in different jobs over time, are they counted multiple times?
So right now, we are presenting the most current position, so where they are at this exact moment in time. Stepping Blocks does have historical employment data available, but at this time, we're not utilizing it. We're focusing on where they are currently. Okay, so if that's the only question, the next thing I'm going to do is show you some of the differences in an individual university report. So I'm going to be using the University of Michigan's individual report. And the first thing to note is that we identify the home state of the university. And then we also let you know approximately how many people stay in the state of Michigan. So in this case, 38% of those research-funded university employees, when they left, stayed in the state of Michigan. And again, just as always, you can drill down into the state and you can see individual counties and see where they go. Now, another difference with the individual reports is that if we look at, let's say, information technology. Now, here's another case where we have more that are going to be suppressed because of privacy concerns. So you'll see more of that. Some other important things that are available are methodology. It walks you through and explains how we produce this report, where the data comes from. And we also provide important metrics so you can understand exactly how many people make up this report and how they were filtered out, how well the match rates were for your university, things like that. You can also download this report as a PDF. And right here, I'm demonstrating what one of the PDFs looks like. It prints out very easily and quickly. You can adjust the charts to fit your narrative, whatever you want to present in the PDF, and then share this with other individuals on your campus or elsewhere.
Kevin, quick
Yes.
question.
Yes.
What is the software powering the dashboards, and how manual is the process of maintaining these reports for university members?
So for university members, the only step that you have to do is send us the annual data submission that goes along with the UMetrics data set. Iris does everything else. The dashboard itself is custom built using D3 as our main graphics driver. Everything is written in JavaScript. So it's not anything that a university member has to worry about maintaining. We take care of all of that. One of the things that we do provide, and I was just about to mention this, is you can download all the underlying data that makes up this report. So all these charts, of course, have aggregated underlying data that produces them. If you click the download data button, you get spreadsheets that you could then use to import this data into, say, Tableau or your own database, combine it with your own data sets, and do whatever you want with it. So, here's an example of the companies where people are employed. You can see the counts, you can see the salaries, you can see the industries, you can see what types of employees are there, you can see the names. All of that information is available for you to download right in the report itself. The other thing that you can do with these reports is you can share them with other people. Typically, the way you access these reports is you would log into the Iris portal. You would have a username and password to do so. People who log in that way and access reports have the ability to edit and customize certain reports. But you can also share this report if you want to share it with somebody from outside your campus, or somebody who doesn't want to have to go through the hassle of logging in. You can just click this. You can set an active time. You can create a URL and you can email that to the person and they can get right into the report without having to log in. And then you also have the knowledge that eventually that shared link will terminate, and you won't have to worry about this report floating out there any longer than you want it to. So So there's really most of the features of the report right there. There's more information that's available if you want to read about it here. Is there any other questions?
There are no questions in chat right now or Q&A.
Okay, okay. So if anybody has questions regarding the data, regarding stepping blocks, regarding the report, I will say that this report, being based on stepping blocks data, will be receiving a supplemental census-based employee report at some point. And then the two together tell, you know, slightly different but interesting stories. So that's also available through IRIS.
Kevin, we do have a question.
Okay.
What race and other demographic data can you stratify by?
So that's a good question for Rob. Right now, we don't pull in racial demographic data. That wasn't something in the scope for this first iteration of the report. Rob, do you want to talk at all about the demographic data that you have available?
Yeah, absolutely. So we do have a gender predictor that's extremely accurate. You know, it only predicts on with a high enough confidence ratio. So that's extremely accurate. We also do have a you know, race and ethnicity predictor. We actually don't utilize it in any public-facing products because, you know, it is a somewhat sensitive topic. You know, we're worried, for instance, in our recruiting application that someone could use it to discriminate instead of just also include people. So until we have better bearings on the use cases and the sensitivity around it, you know, we keep it internal and do not use it in any public-facing applications.
We have a couple more questions. Funders are interested in understanding outcomes of their funding, including graduate scholarships. Have you worked with or made available this database to US or international funders?
So if Jason's still on, I think that might be a question that he can field.
I am still on. So yes, I can answer both of these quickly if you're willing. I'll start with the outcomes. We routinely interact with, and in fact, some of the research that underpins this is funded by particularly the federal science agencies, but also they don't fund us, they're partners, the US Census Bureau. So these data were primarily constructed for two purposes. The fundamental purpose is to create and sustain a research accessible database of fairly comprehensive microdata about the academic research enterprise in the US and what those investments do in terms of economic, social, scientific, educational impact. In that vein, many of our aggregate reports do flow to higher ed associations, to funders, and to others. And we also have some pilot projects going on. For instance, right now we're doing some work to link U-metrics data to the survey of earned doctorates maintained by the National Center for Science and Engineering Statistics. So this is something we do a lot. The second purpose of the data is to be able to translate the research into usable products, data products that help with all of the various folks, with all of the various needs of the universities. In terms of what it takes to become a member of IRIS, we right now have, because we've just produced a different set of reports that are about changes in spending and grant employment over the early months of COVID-19, and we're working very hard to try to bring in more data to get a more comprehensive view of that. Right now, there is an option to join IRIS without cost that's been approved by our board. Typically, that's a time-limited thing, a phased membership. Typically, universities make a contribution of $25,000 a year to support the infrastructure for this. And for that, they get the series of reports. Their researchers get free access to our research support and virtual data enclave. They have a hand and a role in governance. Our board of directors is nominated and elected by members, et cetera, et cetera. We don't currently have any non-university members, although we are in active discussions with a couple of federal agencies and also through them with some of the national labs. So to the extent that basically this kind of administrative data is captured for tax or compliance purposes by an organization with trainees, it should be possible to bring people in. The data are, I'm seeing a question from Jed, right now limited only to individuals who during their time at a university receive some salary, any salary payment, from a federal or non-federal sponsored project. So this is a particular subset of particularly undergraduate and graduate students and faculty. It does not cover a lot of humanists or folks in the interpretive social sciences, but we've been part of a number of efforts, most recently what's called the Census Bureau's post-secondary employment outcomes data set that does this with complete student enrollment data or state higher education data. And the timelines for the data by university vary depending on how far back their systems will let us reach. In this case with the University of Michigan, we have good data back about 20 years. And so rather than show the full time frame, I think we limited this to a 5-year period. And it had to be a 5-year period with a lag so that we could actually observe recent people in those windows moving forward. And then the question, can you elaborate on why the social science student and faculty data is underrepresented? The quick answer to that is that there are large swaths of the social sciences that receive very little and don't really depend on external funding. I'm a sociologist. Many of my colleagues are doing detailed historical work or ethnographic work. And so students who are doing research that doesn't ever proceed to an external grant aren't going to show up here. So parts of the social sciences, psychology is very well represented, economics, quantitative sociology, other parts, not so much.
Okay, do we have other questions? Okay, so if we don't have any other questions, I think we can wrap it up. For all of our existing members, this report is available for you right now in the IRIS portal, so you can go in and view your university's employee outcomes report. Dan, did you want to say something?
Yeah, one more slide, right?
Oh yeah, that's right. One more slide. I apologize. You're
I wanted
absolutely
to
right.
just mention that part of what we do for members is help with publicity. One of our goals is to help universities highlight the accomplishments of their research enterprise. To that end, we provide a press release template along with every report that we do. The idea is to fill in the information relevant to your university and your current communications priorities. As you can see on the left, the template for this particular report focuses on how many or what percentage of research funded employees stay in a university's home state. We are thinking that that's a easily digestible measurement of the impact of university research. That would be relevant to, for example, state funders. We do this for every report. The examples on the right are from the spending report that sort of provides a higher level view of total spending. On the top right is a press release example, and on the bottom right is an example of it being picked up by a media outlet. Just wanted to mention this as something that we provide and that we're always looking at in terms of ways to help you highlight your research enterprise's accomplishments. So I just wanted to let you know that that's something we do.
Great, thanks, Dan. Okay. So if there's no other questions, I want to thank everyone for joining us today. At any time, if you have questions that come up or you're interested in seeing your university's report or you're interested in joining IRIS, feel free to reach out to us. My email address is all over, and you can go to our website, iris.isr.umich.edu, and check us out there.